Our last storyteller, Raymond Gaines, knows a lot about patience and perseverance. He spent 46 years in prison for a murder he did not commit, and he is still fighting for his full exoneration. Being there for others is what helps him fulfill his dreams. With a warm, loving, Luther Vandross-like welcome, let's bring Raymond Gaines to the stage.
I'm 61 years old. And up to this point, I've had 41 years of freedom stolen from my life. I'm placed in the DDU facility. The DDU is the prison within a prison, a place reserved for those that get disciplinary infractions that need to be removed from the general population. Unfortunately for me, I rode that rodeo many times, and on this particular day, I am housed in this unit expecting a visit from my fiance. But in order to get to this visit, I got to submit to a skin search, which requires me to pass all of my clothing outside of the bar to an officer that's on the other side to go through my property to make sure that I'm not carrying anything through the corridors of the prison as I'm escorted to the visiting room. Now, I have two officers on each side of me flanked. One of them is holding my arms because that's part of the DDU procedure, that one of them must have a hand on you at all times. And I'm wondering to myself, and I'm wondering, can they sense this nervousness and this strangeness in my behavior? Because earlier, when I was passing my clothes and stuff through the bars, I had an object secreted in a corner, the only corner that couldn't be visible from the outside of the cell by the officer. And I had laid an object there that I wanted desperately to get to the visiting room. So when they passed me back my clothing, as I was putting everything back on, I slipped the letter into the bottom of my shoe. It was a letter that I had been working on for the past 3 days, and I was expecting a visit from my fiance, and it was her son that had wrote me a few days prior, and I was moved and taken aback by the fact that I knew he was going through a lot of personal problems in his own in his own life, and I knew that in his world, what he was going through was equally as, challenging as what I was going through with my incarceration. And for him to take that time out of his time to reach out to me and tell me that I had family support and loved ones that was, standing beside me as I went through this disciplinary ordeal with DDU. But little did he know, after 41 years of incarceration, I had long ago turned the paradigm from punishment into a sanctuary. And the hole was the only place that I could really listen to my own thoughts and be my most creative self. I'm a poet, I'm a philosopher, I'm a lot of things that people don't know or can't see on the surface. But a lot of this was created in my solitude, And so when they thought they was punishing me, they was making me better, because they was putting me in a situation where I was forced to do introspection and go inside myself and find what needed to be tweaked and made better. And so when I received this letter from this young man who happened to be 41 years old, and as I said earlier, was my fiance's son, and we had gained a rapport from talking over the telephone over a couple of years, and he welcomed me into the family with open arms. So I had an affinity for him. And I felt I needed to do something, to say something that might cast some light upon his journey and his path, drop a gem on him that might, change the trajectory of his life course. And I dug inside myself, and I told this man things that I had never said out loud, never even put on paper. And I told him, shameful things about myself that I hadn't shared in an effort to let him see that you're not that bad, man, and that you've been through some things like everybody in life. And you just need to, face your fears and the obstacles that stand in your life. And I said some things to him, but in order to say these things to him, I had to give up myself and say some things that were scathing and that, didn't show me in the best of light. But in doing that, there were some things said that I needed to say to myself. So let me get back on track. I said some things that took me a little bit off track. But what I was trying to say is when we was going to the visiting room, and I had these gentlemen holding on to my body, and I'm trembling thinking about whether or not they can detect this in me. I finally get to the visiting room safely without incident. And they take the shackles and the handcuffs up off of me. I'm shackled at the feet and have handcuffs on a waist belt around my waist. And they take the cuffs and the shackles off me, and the two officers that escort me to the visiting room, they leave. And 45 seconds later, they bring my fiance to the other side. It's an enclosed room that's separated by a partition and a phone. No way to pass anything through the petition or anything. So when I see her come in, I look around and I see the officers are gone. So I slide the letter out and I set it up. I said, listen, this is what I sent to your son. This is what I want to send to your son. And I want you to hear what I said to him. I want you to be a part, to stay a continual part of your parenting process. And I want you to check what I said to him to see if it fit, your program. So she listened to me as I read it, and I was about to say something that my eyes read ahead of me, and I knew what I was getting ready to say. But before I could say it, I felt this feeling inside me, and all of a sudden, I felt the warmness of tears coming down my face because I know what I was getting ready to tell her, what I had said to her son. I was going to tell him that hope sprung eternal. I had said so many things up to that point that by the time I was about to say hope sprung eternal, it just took over me, and I went into a gut-wrenching cry. It was just, it was so turbulent that I had to put the phone down and turn around and bend over at the waist. I was jerking and, convulsing as though I had an imaginary puppeteer with strings on me, just making my body bounce and rock. And in that moment, it came as a rush, like a revelation or, I knew in that instant that what I had said to this young man is something that I needed to hear all my life, coming from someone. And that vestige of hope that I had, that I was still hanging on to, that I sought to share with somebody else, the letter that I thought I wrote to him, it turned out to be a letter to myself. The things that I said to him, I was needing to hear. And after that visit, I talked to his mother, and I asked him, how did he receive this letter? And she told me, she said, I gave him the letter. We were sitting in the living room watching TV, and he eased off. He started reading, and he eased off into the bathroom. And he came out the bathroom. So I said, yeah, so his eyes was red, and I could tell he was crying. I said, oh, that's good. So it affected him. So I said, so did you see any noticeable changes in his behavior? I mean, what's happening? She said, nah, baby, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You know, he cried. So I said, so, you know, my takeaway with that is that, you know, sometimes, you know, people change in their own way, in their own time, you know, and you can't set no schedule for nobody to, you know, do right by themselves, you know what I mean? But that letter didn't have the desired effect that I wanted or thought that it would have on the young man. But I tell you what, I've kept this letter. It's been 8 years since I wrote this original letter that was in the bottom of my shoe that I brought to the visiting room. This is the same letter. It's not changed at all. And every time that I feel as though my life is going off track and I need to be realigned, that letter that I wrote to that young man, that I wrote to myself, I pull it out and I get realigned. And it's this line that I come to that really brings things home for me. And I don't have my doggone glasses. But I'm gonna try to do the best that I can from recollection. I said, and I refer back to this like I said when I get off track. I promise you, man, nothing is ever as hard to do as you imagine it to be, or nothing, or see, this is a doggone, can I turn my back to have some light? Oh, thank you so much. Oh, man, bless you. All right, I promise you, man, nothing is ever as hard to do as you imagine, or as terrible as your fears would have you believe. Once you make up your mind to take the first step to do good intentions with your heart, with good intentions in your heart to do the right thing, the universe will bring favorable karma to you and open up doors of new opportunities for you. And that's what I cling to after 4 years free.